Fuatene kata karik usa tisu hatama farida be flash ne fatin tool fatine para be lori fale sanita ne karik hemu aqua sampa nasasire tau falia plastik meta ne be prepara ona ya liul ne makneret Itan instructor hoy en día, karek sema kia preguntas, cualquier preguntas en relación a materia horseika, horseik niane, bawar sak, bele husu, bele foi minia preguntas ba. Foi minia preguntas, bele ya portugués, bele ya inglés, o bele ya tetum, bele Indonesia, pues bele, ta bele translate ba sirba en inglés.
Before we get to the questions, I've put up this again, similar to what we did yesterday, a little Menti. So if you want to go to this website, so for those who are still joining, you just need to make sure you got a copy of the code, but you will see that on each slide. First question, are you ready for the exam today, this afternoon? Yes? No? What exam? Remember, this is my test question to see who's awake. The code's at the very top, 2164. I always like this one. It's a good way to wake you up. It's better than coffee. So we've got 27 registered. There's a lot more than 27 people here. So you can just go to www.menti.com and then you put that code that's at the top. So the next question is, how well did you understand yesterday? I understood everything, most of it. I still have some questions. I'm totally confused. Help! Hopefully we can help those people today. So I've got 36 people registered, 25 responses. So this is important so that way I know how much revision we need to do for this morning. But we might just, okay, so I definitely need to explain it a little bit better by the looks of that. There's still 13 of you that are a little bit confused or need some extra help, and I understand that there's still lots of questions. That one I can understand. So now's the time to ask any questions about what we covered yesterday. Now you can ask the questions with the microphone that's going to go around the room, or you can just start typing in the question there. Yesterday we covered, I'm not sure, is the microphone working? So yesterday we covered how, at the end of yesterday, we covered how Wireshark, you can use that to look at packet captures. In particular, we looked at the telnet packet capture and looking at that protocol for clear text passwords, usernames and the commands. Then we did the same for a file transfer protocol, FTP, and where there was a password brute force attack on a server. We were able to identify the malicious activity from that. So with Wireshark, it's a tool that is very easy to use to have a look at packets. But if you're new to doing packet analysis, there is another tool called Network Miner. Network Miner is a commercial tool, so it's not as easy to use, but the free version, the community version, allows you to do a lot more. It identifies the operating system of the endpoint devices and it lays it out in a nice way. So if you do want to do more packet analysis, I would suggest having a look at the tool called Network Miner. But it is a skill that you need to develop over time with practice. So have a look at other sorts of packet captures, and there's different websites that allow you to do that. We also talked about the fundamentals of the security in regards to CIA. What does CIA stand for? Can someone tell me what C is for? Confidentiality. I was going to ask other people. Yes, thank you for that. So you get a chocolate. So, confidentiality, what does that mean? Can someone over this side tell me what do we mean by confidentiality? Someone in the military should be able to tell me about this. You have lots of classifications already. What do you think confidentiality is? If you don't want to answer in English, that's fine. You can answer in your local language, or Portuguese, or Bahasa. Anyone know what's confidentiality?
Oke, bisa juga Pak dijawab dengan pertanyaan bahasa Indonesia. Apa confidentiality? Mungkin ada yang bisa jawab juga kalau pakai bahasa Indonesia.
So confidentiality is making sure that the information that you're storing is kept. Only the appropriate people are able to see it and use it. So that's what we're talking about with confidentiality. So for example, if you're an internet service provider, you don't want anyone being able to access your customer list and get details of your customer. You want to make sure that is secure. If you've got passwords to your routers, you don't want people accessing that list. Integrity. Can someone tell me what integrity means? Someone over this side. I've got chocolates. You can answer, but you won't get a chocolate. So integrity is looking at being able to make sure that the information hasn't been changed, as an example. So a good example would be a website. We saw yesterday website defacement. That means the integrity of that website was no longer valid. Going back to an internet service provider, your customer database. If I was a malicious person, I could potentially go in there and change the amount of money that you would be charging your customer for transit. So therefore the integrity of the database would no longer be valid. The next one would be availability, and availability refers to making sure that the users are able to do what they have to with the resources at any time of the day. Integrity and availability. From a security point of view, just think about it from this point of view. You need to know what you have on your network. You need to know what you need to. You need telemetry to. And then from that telemetry, you need some sort of detection to be able to determine that there is malicious traffic or something unusual happening on your network. And then you need a means of recovery. So that recovery could be a backup, or threat hunting, or some sort of mechanism to be able to do a response to an incident. The way that you do that is going to be unique to your organization and your skill level. So everyone has different skills, and every organization has different tool sets as well as different requirements. So going back to the first part where we asked about, do you still have questions? That could be the sort of questions that you want to know. You want to know, when I first started out, I wanted to know, what should I be protecting? What tools should I have? How much should I spend or not spend if I didn't have a budget? And then what happens when an incident occurs? How do I recover? And you only get that from experience. So you can either do the experience real, as in your production has been compromised, and then you learn on the fly, or you can do exercises. And the military are always doing different types of exercises to improve their skills or to get lessons learnt as examples. True? When you do your different exercises that you participate in. In regards to the internet service provider, you have what's called red team exercises, you have pen test audits, you have blue team, red team exercises, or red team, blue team, purple team exercises. And for those people that aren't involved in that and are interested in it, there is also what's called capture the flags. Has anyone heard of that term? Capture the flag. So in ICT world, the capture the flag is basically a competition that you can participate in, and you try and do certain activities. Example would be similar to yesterday with Wireshark. You are posed some questions like, what was the username? What was the password? And you get given a packet capture, and you've got to find the results to that. Before I change to the different screen, I'll just answer this question here. Can we use Wireshark to capture threat connection to our local network? You can see, as long as you can see the traffic passing by, potentially you could capture local threat. So a good example is, say, DNS tunneling. You could use Wireshark to capture your DNS packets and then be able to identify that malicious trend or that packet there. But yes, you can use that. So as part of the incident response framework, or my incident response that I do, if the client has a packet capture that they're able to send me, I will look at that to see where the connection or how far the, say, ransomware has spread, because it will show certain machines reaching out and connecting to other machines. So remember yesterday we went to the conversations between the devices. So we can look at that. So the conversations, the protocols that are used, and the sizing of the packets could indicate that there is some sort of threat connection or exfiltration of data. Just like yesterday, I'll leave that running. What I'll get people to do is to connect to the events page. And if you scroll to the bottom of this events page, there is this website here called Try Hack Me. So I've mentioned about capture the flag, and for those people that actually want to get some practice after the event, after today, because 2 days is not going to make you a security expert. If you click on that, this brings you to this website here. You can create a free account, and then from that free account, I've given a listing of different rooms. They refer to them as rooms, but it's basically sometimes a virtual machine that you need to connect to and answer questions about an incident or a packet or something like that. So we talked about the web application firewall, so you can learn about how to use that here. We talked about input manipulation. Oh, no, we didn't do that. So we talked about phishing. So this is helping you go through and learn about that. But network traffic basics, that's going to be talking about the different protocols from Wireshark yesterday. Network discovery and network security essentials, what we talked about yesterday. So you can click on this. I may not be able to go anywhere because I'm not signed in on this. And what this will do, it will show you some information about the learning objectives. So it's going to talk about network security fundamentals, network fundamentals, and log analysis, which we'll cover a little bit today. And this is the sort of questions that you'll get. So how to connect to the lab. So you have a virtual machine and you've got to connect to it. Then it talks about what is a network. But this is what the capture the flag is. If I jump down to the logs, it's talking about how to view different types of logs. And then from there, it will have some, if I can get to it, examine the firewall logs. What external IP performed the most reconnaissance? So you'll need to answer those questions. And there'll be a walkthrough that you could possibly follow if you're new to this. So you increase your skill doing that. Rather than having to do it during a live incident, you can practice beforehand and start building up your skill. The other thing to look at is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. For those people who are new to security, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a framework that helps explain the attack techniques that could be used against a network. And what it has across the top is the various stages of an attack. So the first stage of an attack is reconnaissance, and that is where you try and find out as much information about the target network as possible. Then, once you've found that information, you start determining what sort of attacks that you could do. And sometimes those attacks require you to create some resources or using freely available resources. And then you then attempt to get access to the network. So that's initial access. So you've got all of these stages going across the top here, and at each of those stages is the actual technique that is used to do that procedure. So we've got active scanning. Example would be Nmap, and we'll do that in the last lab when we do our vulnerability assessment and pen testing. Gather victim organisation information, and so on. Each one of these, if you click on that, is then going to take you to a wiki page to give you more detail about that. And it allows you to then, as a person that's new to the security field, learn more about that technique. And you can do some research from that. This framework's been around for at least 9 years. It's only recently that a lot of the vendors now are saying, oh, we map to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And so now that when you buy certain software, CrowdStrike, for example, they'll say, we map to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. This alone would be another 5-day workshop. So I'm just introducing you to it. But what you can normally do in an organisation is that you have a look at your existing tools and what they cover against the framework, and you're able to map out where your weaknesses are and where you should be spending money. But that's something different again from a defender. For those people who did like the Wireshark lab yesterday, there is a practical packet analysis virtual lab that you will be able to get access to after today. Oh, maybe not. Have we got internet issues? Oh, yeah. I just need to do a refresh. This is going to bring you to the academy, and I'll show you how to log in properly soon, but that will take you to this, and you'll need a password. You'll get a password today to be able to access that, but we're not going to focus on that lab here. I'm just pointing it out so you've got access to that after today. So that's this link here. So that's just some of the revision there. Once we've done that with the packet analysis, it's a very manual process, as you saw yesterday. We manually had to go have a look. There are tools out there that are called intrusion detection systems. Intrusion detection systems looks at the traffic that is going across a network, and it's able to then use what's called rules to create alerts and let you know that, hey, this may be suspicious, you need to do something about that. It's like having a security alarm in a house. When someone breaks into the house, they walk through the security alarm and the alarm goes off. That's the idea of this intrusion detection system. So let's start the slide deck. Any questions? Which subtitles would you prefer, English, Indonesian, or Portuguese? English still? Indonesian? Okay. Let's see how we go with Indonesian subtitles. Is that easier to read? Okay, so let's get going. So intrusion detection system. We're going to talk about what is an intrusion detection system, some of the concepts that's related to that, and then why you would want to deploy it and where you would deploy it, and then a quick introduction to Suricata and the rules that are associated with that. You will not learn how to create rules, but out of the box, when you install Suricata, it has something like 64,000 different types of rules for detecting the known bad traffic that could be on a network. So you can leave it at that. When you look at threat intelligence feeds, some of those will give you what the rule should be to apply to your intrusion detection systems. There are commercial tools out there. Those commercial tools would be setting up these rules on your behalf based on their own threat intelligence. But we're looking at an open source solution. The reason why you need intrusion detection system is defenses fail. Nothing is perfect. Example would be in your house, you have windows, you have doors, you have gates, you may have a dog or an animal, and you've got locks. But that may not stop someone trying to break into your house, getting into the house. So setting up an alarm system is another mechanism to alert you that something has happened. And so that's why you do that. A lot of the penetrations or the access to networks are never detected because they use various mechanisms to hide themselves to look like legitimate traffic, or they sit idle, and it's not until near the end of the the attack that you detect them. From a security point of view, there is no 100% prevention. As Afan mentioned yesterday, it's like being the goalkeeper in football or soccer. So you want to be able to prevent as best you can or detect if you can't prevent it. There's also legal requirements around the world to be able to protect the data that you have on your network. So in Australia, we have the notifiable data breach scheme. India and China, they have different laws as well. I'm not too sure about Timor-Leste. You're experts in your country, so you may be able to tell me if there is a data breach. But in Australia, we have what's called this cyber defense guidelines, the Central 8, what you should be doing. And in America, they have the NIST 853 and other documentations. With this in mind, it shows that being able to use different types of detection mechanisms and rate against the resistance from a user point of view, how much it costs, and then ongoing cost. So if we look at the actual continuous incident detection and response, and we look at network-based intrusion detection and so on, we can see here that it doesn't really impact the end user because they don't realize it's on the network. The upfront cost is high for the network-based intrusion, but the ongoing maintenance is a little bit cheaper for you. But these are all mechanisms that you are going to use when you need to look into and investigate a security incident. Essentially what an intrusion detection system does, for example, you install it and let it run for a couple of weeks to learn what is your normal network traffic. So it goes into what's called a learning mode. Once it's done that learning mode, you can start applying the rules to that, and that is the detection mode. But it looks for what is seen as, I don't even know what happened there. Yeah. Thank you. So it looks for what is learning mode, then it goes into detection mode, and then it starts figuring out what is abnormal. The main idea is that it's going to alert to a dashboard, and you have someone physical, a human, that is then going to investigate that alert. And there are various tools out there to help you for that. Sometimes it's going to be exact. It'll say, yep, that is a problem. You need to investigate it. You then investigate it, and you confirm that it was bad. If it's not correct, you then need to classify it and then do some modification to the rules and so on. The intrusion detection system, just like any security alarm, it's not going to compensate for weak security. So if you leave your front door wide open and you turn your alarm on, it's not going to stop someone walking into your house. So it doesn't help with that. It also needs human intervention. There are more and more tools now that are using large language models and artificial intelligence to be able to help classify the traffic, but you still need to do human interaction to improve on that. And then the idea is that you look at your organization's security policy, and based on that, you then need to convert it into the rules to do the detection. The type of detection that most of the intrusion detection systems do is they will use signature-based. So most of you have some sort of antivirus on your computer. The antivirus is going to download a listing of what it knows as bad files. That's the same for the intrusion detection system. It's going to look for a certain pattern, and it might even be a signature or a hash. When it looks at anomaly-based, that's unusual behavior. What that is say you've got your different segments of your network. Someone from sales should not be contacting the accounts database, possibly. And so that would be seen as unusual traffic. You also, as a network engineer, you have different types of networks. You've got your retail network, your customer network, you've got your core network, you've got your data center network. Some of those networks should not be seeing certain traffic. And that's referred to not the dark web, as we've heard, but the dark net. So certain traffic should not be on that. And then in some cases, you can set up a honeypot. And a honeypot allows you to basically say, hey, I'm this type of service, come connect to me. And when someone connects to it, you are able to monitor what techniques they used. So yesterday when we looked at the packet capture for Telnet, we saw someone log in, they did the ls command, and they did a ping. With the honeynet, we can do something similar as well with the honeypot and the honeynet. The advantages of signature analysis. It's very simple to do, and it's fast and doesn't take many resources. What you do need to do, though, is to subscribe to good database or data set to get those signatures. The disadvantage, though, is that it is easy to bypass. So what it does, it uses certain distinct marks. For example, IP address. We know that this particular IP address is from a malicious site. The computer name, certain strings that are in the packet, some of the header information. So for an Nmap scan, you can see something like this. So there's this message, most header, if you just use a default sort of scan without modifying the Nmap tool, it has this information in the header called Nmap, and there's a space in there. And so we go user agent, HTTP header, and then Nmap, and then this will alert saying someone's trying to do reconnaissance on your network. They're doing a scan of some resources. From an intrusion detection system point of view, there's also the other types available. There's intrusion prevention system, there's vulnerability scanning, and so on. When we are looking at the incident or at your network, you've got what's called real-time response, and then you've got the proactive and reactive from that. So essentially what you're going to have is when we are doing a preventative, that is not real time. So something that you can do today to help protect for tomorrow. That's what preventative is. Real time is when it's happening now. So what you try to do at the start is to determine which systems are vulnerable. So you will go do some sort of vulnerability assessment. Once you've got the vulnerability assessment, you know what you need to patch, what you need to fix, or what you need to monitor. When you look at monitoring, you use some sort of intrusion detection system, whether that's on the endpoint device, like your computer, or the network itself, the traffic that's traversing the network. There's also another feature that you can use, which is called a file integrity checker. There was a question yesterday about how do you know if you've been able to remediate and clean up after an attack. This is one of the tools that you would need to do that, because you need to know what state it was good at and then compare it with the current state, and if they're different, then you know you haven't cleaned it up properly, if that makes sense. So you need some sort of file integrity check there. The thing that is used the most in the intrusion detection system is the alerts. Alerts are going to basically tell you, hey, you've got someone walking in, or there's someone accessing this file when they shouldn't be. If you turn all the 64,000 or 65,000 alerts on, you might find that you get 1 million alerts an hour. That's going to be way too many for your normal response team to be able to handle and do something about. So this is where going back and making sure, it doesn't go back, okay. Going back and making sure that, I'll try it, yeah, it does. That you've done this assessment here and you figure out what you want to protect. If you don't turn on all the alerts, you may miss something. So, for example, if you set up your home security to only monitor the front door, but someone comes in the back door, you've missed that alert. And then there's different types of alerts. So false positive, that's where you get an alert, but it's incorrect. So it's saying, hey, this is malicious traffic, when really it wasn't. And then a false negative is where you don't actually detect someone doing that. And this is where, if you have a pen test against your system, once you install the intrusion detection system, and check that it actually is working the way you expect. Where you want to be able to put your intrusion detection system, it will depend on what you're trying to protect. If you want to protect your endpoint devices, then you're going to have more specific alerts looking at what traffic's going there. The further towards the border, the more generic your rules are going to be. And we're going to insert a network intrusion detection system to look at the wire, or look at the traffic that's going across the network. And then at the endpoint, you're looking at a host intrusion detection system. A lot of the antivirus software now is becoming what's called EDS, endpoint detection systems. And they add in a little bit more than just antivirus. They also do alerts on certain connections that are coming to your computer. Where should you install an intrusion detection system? A couple of options. You can do it inline, behind or in front of the firewall. And then you need some way of seeing the traffic. And so in most cases, you use some sort of tap device or a router or switch that allows for sending the traffic to a port. So in Cisco, it's referred to as a span. And you're basically saying any traffic passing through this network device, send a copy of the traffic out to the intrusion detection system. And that's where a Cisco Catalyst switch will allow you to do that. Something to be aware of is the amount of traffic that is traversing that network device. If it's going to be a lot of traffic, be careful in regards to what you're sending to the intrusion detection system, because what it can do is it can basically drop packets because it was too busy. If you've got 100 gig going through here and you've only got a 1 gig port coming through this section here, it's going to end up dropping the traffic. So just be aware of that, not to overload that switch port. From an internet service provider's point of view, you could do value add, saying, hey, we can monitor your customer's network for this malicious traffic, and then we can alert you to that if you want. So you could do a value add as a possibility. The disadvantage, though, as a customer, I've paid for transit through your network. I don't want you inspecting my traffic. True? So there's a fine line between that. This is where the dashboard I showed you yesterday, dash.apnic.net, where we've got the HoneyNet, or APNIC's got the HoneyNet project, and it tells you, hey, we're seeing some malicious traffic here. So it then allows you to have that conversation with your customer. Because overall, if your customer's network is full of ransomware and the software is now reaching out to your other customers, that's not going to look good for you. You're making money from them sending traffic across the link, but it's now damaging your other customers. That's probably not a good idea either. So the tool that we're going to use in our lab today is called Suricata. There's another one called Snort. Snort has been around since early 2000s, and because it was written so long ago, it's not as fast anymore. It's very intensive. Cisco has purchased Snort from the open source community and still maintains a community version of that. But the people that were part of the development project for Snort, they broke away from that team and they set up Suricata. Suricata is multi-threaded, so it runs a lot faster in regards to your faster network speeds that we have now. And it handles some of the ruling a little bit different. But it's become very popular because of the support from the Open Information Security Foundation. It's also been integrated in some other tooling as well. So there's a all-in-one tool called Security Onion that implements a ticketing system, the intrusion detection system, and then sets the alerts through that as well. Our focus, though, is just looking at the simple detection system. So I've already given an idea about that. So released in 2010, multi-threaded, and it allows a lot of matching of files and extracting data. I'll let you read that, don't need to do that. But essentially, when we create a Suricata rule, what it's going to have is an action, some information about what's in the header of the protocol that you're looking at, and then what you want to do once it has been matched. So what is the rule options? So in the action here, you've got drop, log, alert, allow, that sort of thing. In the green is the actual information that is related to what's in the packet. So when we looked at Wireshark yesterday, I didn't drill down into the source address, the destination address, the protocol that's used, and the port number or anything like that. But that's what this is referring to here. And then inside here is what specifically we're looking for. So these are the actions that we can do: alert, pass, drop, reject, and so on. So normally most rules will have the alert, and then you've got the stop further inspection, so just let it pass, and then you've got the drop the packet and generate an alert. Breaking it down, for the header information, we've got the protocol that we want to look at, so that could be IP, TCP, UDP. The source and destination IP addresses, and in Suricata we can actually create a variable for a listing of IP addresses, and this is in the config file. So where we've got the home net, it identifies that based on the machine that you've installed, or when you were installing it you would specify what your home net. So it might be something like 192.168.0.1/24. The port that you want and the direction that you are looking for the traffic going to. So going from your home network to your external network on any port. So this is going to create an alert for anything that's TCP protocol, going from your home network on any port to the external network on any port. Then we have information about the content modifiers. So looking at the content in the packet, it might have something like the website page that you were downloading, index.php. And then what are you going to do with that? This can get very convoluted, so we're not going to spend time because we don't build out any rules, but essentially in your rule you have your message that you're going to display in the alert, a unique signature ID. If you've been modifying the alert over a period of time, you're going to give it a different revision number, and then you can specify a class type. So this is a way of grouping the alerts in your ticketing system. And then if you've got a reference, so if you've gotten it from threat intelligence or you've been given an alert from the provider, the vendor, and the recommendations for creating it, so the URL, and then what sort of priority in your ticketing system will you give it? 1 means red flag, it's bad, and then any extra information. By default, those 65,000 rules that come with the installation may not be relevant to your network, so you need to be aware of what you want to turn on and off. And you can suppress or disable rules that you don't want. This doesn't make sense until you get your hands dirty. So let's actually start the lab. and start walking through investigating some packets using Suricata. So we're going to be just replaying packet captures to the intrusion detection system rather than using a live network to be able to then investigate and have a look at what some of the packets are. So we're going to go to the Academy page. And I want you to open this link here. And it should bring you to lab 97224. I'm going to flip over to another window. I'm already logged in, but the browser's not on that main window. I just realised I'm looking, it's not showing the window that I want. So when you go to this page, it's going to ask, it's probably a good idea to log into the Academy first, but once you're logged in, you get this account come up. If it doesn't show just yet, that's fine. The link is here. And the password that you need to use is this one here, Manning5 Timmy_Pint. Don't ask me. I didn't create the password. So these are all of the labs that we would be doing at one point. And then if I paste that in here and click on this, in theory, it should take me to the I'll let that load up in the background. Maybe it won't work.
No, because I get the same password also. It's like one time.
I'll try again. It worked the other day. Hopefully it's working today. That's looking better. Okay, so sometimes, see up here, it hasn't actually put the lab code at the end of it. So what I need to do is just grab the lab code again, which is this one here. And now that I've used the password, it should be okay, and just open it up. So there is a bit of a issue with some of the latency. It's getting there. And hopefully you'll get to this point here. Once you at this point here, after you've logged in, actually, I'll go through the process again, because this is going to be a little bit different depending on what you see. So I'm going to go File, New Private Window. I'm going to try and go to this lab. That was a private window. It shouldn't have remembered. It shouldn't. It was a private window. It shouldn't have remembered. I'll just close that. I'm going to go close this one. I've just closed both my private labs windows. So I'll try again. So that way I go through the whole process. Perfect. So now I'm at this window here. You need to log in first. So you've got the login. How many people don't have an account on the Academy? If you don't have an account, you can either work with someone that's got one, or if you click on this register button. So you click on register, and then you type in your email address that you can access today, because they'll send you a validation email, your name and display name. So the full name is what's going to go on your Academy certificates. Display name is just something that could be used in the forums. Something to be aware of is use your personal email, because the training certificates will follow you. Whereas if you use your work and you change work to someone else, you can't transfer the certificates over. So be aware of that. Once you've answered those 3 questions here, you can skip the additional and just add in a password. Now, be careful. I can get all the green ticks set for this password, but it still won't let me to use that password, because what it also does, it checks the most common password list. And so if your password's on there and you go, hold on, it's all green ticks, it's because it's on the common password list. So for example, I can type in I've got to create an account, but yeah, I can type in 8 characters minimum, 1 lowercase, 1 uppercase, 1 number, 1 special character, no parts of my email, and it still wouldn't let me register. So as an example, if I try to register, now this could prove me wrong. I've just made up a random account. So let's see. Oh, it's not putting the green ticks there anymore. It used to put green ticks down here, but it's saying password requirements are not met, even though I've done exactly that. That password is on the most common password list. So once you've registered, for those people who have to join, you then go check your email and you just follow the instructions from there. I'll go back to the login page. So I'm just going to click on login. And I'm going to take this off screen and log in. So once you've logged in, you'll get an icon similar to what's up here. So I'm now going to grab the password again. And I'm going to press enter. If this is the first time that you've come to the virtual labs, you're going to get a yellow bar or a message saying you need to allow pop-ups, because when you start the virtual lab, it uses pop-ups. So in Firefox and some of the other browsers, up in the top left-hand corner, there is a drop-down that you can click on, and under the block, you can click on allow. So depending on which browser you are using is how you would allow those pop-ups. And it's forgotten the lab again up here, so I've allowed the pop-up. I'm going to go back and copy. So it's a very convoluted way of doing it. Click up here, and now that I've logged in, I've allowed pop-ups, and I've put the password in. It should remember everything and open up the virtual lab page. And we're now at this point here. What we want to do is click on Launch Lab, and it's going to be interesting seeing how many labs we can have running at the same time. And I'm going to go yes. So I'll let that start up. How's everyone going? So you got a 404 not found page. Have you logged in yet? Or was that your email that you were validating your login? Have you logged in or did you register? Is there anyone having issues with trying to register an APNIC account where it can't do the recapture component? Only seems to be a few down here. Does anyone have a spare laptop that maybe they can use to try it on a different laptop? Oh yeah, it has worked. Oh, I don't understand why you need that, but yeah, so they're trying to get you to do multi-factor authentication. So seems like that the APNIC registration process has gone a little bit more complex. So they get you to choose the picture to make sure that you're human, and now they want you to set up MFA. So multi-factor authentication. So you either need to use a phone or some sort of software to allow that. So you can try. It's a temporary code. Yeah. Have you got Google Authenticator on there? Google Authenticator is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do while the other people are still trying to register, I'll go through the first part of the lab so that way you can start working on the lab for that. So in regards to the lab that's on the Academy, we're going to skip the installation because it's already installed for that lab because we're actually handling malicious packets to do the investigation. So we don't want that system connected to the public internet as such. So what you do to install it, there's 3 things to set up Suricata if you want to do it in your own environment later on. You need to install Suricata. You need to install a tool in the Linux system called JQ, and that allows you to do what's called JSON queries. Then we want to install a graphical interface that we can use to look at the alerts from Suricata rather than just using the command line, and that's called EveBox. So to install, we go to a folder called Downloads that we create, and we should have downloaded EveBox. So this is what this is saying, wget grab EveBox from this URL, and then we say install EveBox using the installation command. It is a Linux installation software, so there is not a Windows version that I know of. To install Suricata, you point it to a location that you can download from, and in this case it's the Suricata stable. Once you've done that, you can then do a install of the software. Once it is installed, you're going to then check for the status of Suricata, so sudo system status Suricata, and it should be active. You can also stop it at any point. And throughout the lab, there'll be instructions on doing that. Our first packet capture file that we're going to investigate, don't worry about the Academy just yet. I'm just giving you some background of what we're trying to do. on the Academy, we're going to look at a malware that has been deployed in a lab environment, and they've captured the traffic between the machines to try and investigate what it was. Has anyone heard of WannaCry or Eternal Blue? It is malware, correct. So anyone heard of the National Security Agency in the United States? They created a tool called Eternal Blue that attacked Windows systems and were able to compromise and get access to the Windows system. That tool got stolen and leaked onto the internet. And then from that, an organization or malicious actor created this malware, this ransomware called WannaCry. And so what Eternal Blue does, it goes looking for Windows machines, it connects to any of their network shares and tries to exploit it and then run the ransomware. And so this is what we've got here in the lab environment, is these 5 machines. A Windows 7 machine is actually where WannaCry was launched from, and it then scanned the network to try and get access to these other machines. So that's the sort of traffic that we're trying to get access to. In the lab, what you're going to do is you're going to run Suricata. You're going to say -R, which means replay this packet capture. And the packet capture that we want to replay is this WannaCry one. And then -L means we want to log it into a logs directory. And we're not going to check for any checksum or validation of the files. And so what it's going to do is it's going to then run it similar to this. So we've got sudo suricata, Eternal Blue -L for logs -K, none, and then it'll start running. And we'll see here that it's able to read one file, the size of the file in bytes as well as packets, and then what sort of threads they're going to be running, plus other details will flash by. And we'll look at that in the lab. So going to the Academy. For those people who haven't used the Academy page before, the virtual labs, top left-hand corner is a lightning bolt, and it has type text, and you can type username and password. If it needs a password, you can grab it from there. Or on the resources tab, you've got the username and password there as well. Under the resources, under the right-hand side pane is your instructions for the lab. And this is the lab layout that we're looking at doing. So each of the folders will have the name of the lab, so lab 1, and then inside that folder will be the packet capture, and in some cases some other files or directories. So lab 1 will have this first packet capture. There's already a directory called logs to store your information, and then we'll do the others there. So for those people who haven't been able to register, don't worry, just watch what's happening up here, and we'll come and help you while other people are doing the lab. If we click on next, this is going to talk about the installation. In theory, actually, maybe it's not. No, there is no internet connection, so you don't need to do this. But this is exactly what I showed you in the slide, but this is something that you can follow in your own virtual environment if you want to learn how to install it. We're going to click on next, And over here is the first lab. So we're looking at lab 1, review WannaCry eternal blue traffic. So we're going to open up this command prompt and we want to SSH. Can everyone see the screen up the back, or is it too small? Do you want me to make it bigger? So hopefully that's big enough. What you'll notice is that we've got the instructions, little grey areas, and the symbol T next to it. If I click on that T, that's going to type the text in for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH to the Suricata server, and it's going to ask for the password, which is training, all lowercase. And I should now see that it's changed from H1 to Suricata. So I'm now on that lab, and I want to change into the directory lab 1. Inside this directory, I should see my packet capture file and a directory called logs. So we want to replay or read that packet capture, and then we want to store the results into this directory called logs. So I'm just going to let that replay, and that's going to take a short time. Depending on how big your packet capture is, it can be quite a long time. In this case, it shouldn't be more than 5 minutes. So now that we've got that packet capture there, we can start investigating what's inside the logs directory. So if I do a directory listing of that logs directory, I now have 4 files. I've got security.log, I've got stats.log, fast.log, and I have eve.json. So this is what's actually happening behind the scenes. Suricata is going to grab the packet capture file. It's going to send all the output to the logs directory. But when it starts up, it looks at this suricata.yaml file, and then it reads in all the rules on how to set itself up, how many threads, and what sort of processing it needs to do. As it reads each packet from WannaCry.pcat file, it matches it against the Suricata rules. If there is a match, it's then going to output information into our logs. So what you'll have is the Eve JSON fast.log, stats.log, and suricata.log. You can use tools to manually go and view at that log. So you can use the less command, head, tail, egrep, and so on. Inside the JSON file, it's exactly the same as the suricata. Only difference is that it's laid out in a structure that looks like this. So it gives you a timestamp, the packet number, the event type, the source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, the protocol, and what was the action that it did. So based on that, looking at these text files, we would, as an incident response person, try to create a timeline of what happened. You need to figure out who was attacking who, when did it start, or the timing of that, and using your experience, could you determine anything else? Which is a bit hard since this is your first time. But as an incident response, you'll start learning techniques to look at that. And then trying to figure out what was the vulnerability. In this case, I've told you it's eternal blue. So flipping back to our lab, we can have a look at the, if I'm connected, something went wrong. Oh no, that's just telling you details about what those labs are. Let's have a look at the fast.log. And inside here, these are the packets that have some sort of malicious or strange activity in it. So it's taken those 48,000 packets and just pulled out the packets that it thought was malicious or something abnormal about that. So they get stored in the fast.log. So in this case here, it's saying IPv6 or ICMP v6 invalid checksum. Really, probably nothing to worry about at this point, more something to optimize your IPv6 setup. If we start scrolling down further, we're now seeing something that is a problem. Can you see the word a network Trojan was detected? So it's saying double pulsar, network Trojan. Then we've got here ET exploit possible. The download for eBox. No, you don't need to do that. So see how there's already a green tick? So the installation is already done. So you can't, it's only there for instructions if you want to do it on a different system, on your own system. So you can go to next. And then this is what we're doing, this lab one. Yep. So the installation component, I said that that was already completed. So it's lab one that we're working on. If I have a look at this file, it's going to show me that there's only 7,934 packets in this file compared to how many packets were in the original, which is 46,000. So it's only pulled out the malicious or suspicious packets. If we then drill down for the keyword exploit, we can see that we've pulled out all of those packets now. And it's dropped another 70 or 80 packets out. So let's come around and help. So have you received an email yet or gotten past the MFA? Yeah. Have you gotten past the MFA? You can't.
So one.
No, all of them. Anywhere where there's light. There's no bicycle there. So you need 8 characters, which you look like you have. You need an uppercase, a lowercase, and a number. And now you need a special character, like one of the exclamation mark and symbol. They don't have instructions.
They just only see the terminal one. They didn't see this right.
So tell what you can do.
For a second, okay.
Who else needs help getting in? Have you got your email yet? Sometimes it takes forever. What's happening with the register? So it's not responding. It's something. The underscore may be your issue. And yeah, so change the underscore to a dash. For those that are working on the lab and you've gotten to this part here, you should be able to follow the instructions and it will continue showing you what you're doing, and then I'll come back and explain.
Baik Bapak Ibu, apakah masih ada yang belum bisa mengakses labnya? Jika misalnya sudah bisa mulai mengakses, yang perlu diperhatikan pertama adalah lab Surikata itu sebenarnya sudah terinstall. Jadi langkah yang ada di instruksi yang pertama, ini instruksi halaman pertama, itu dia sudah kita hanya cukup SSH ke server Surikatanya aja dari host H1. Ini sudah nggak perlu nggak perlu dieksekusi lagi, dijalankan lagi. Hanya mungkin perlu dilihat konfigurasinya, masuk di sini review Surikata configuration. Jadi kalau ada perintah T ini artinya dia bisa di copy paste saja langsung. Nah, jadi kalau Bapak Ibu sudah lihat konfigurasinya seperti apa, oh seperti ini, mulai agak kebayang isinya seperti apa, direktorinya Surikata ada ini, konfigurasinya di sini. Nah, nanti baru kalau sudah selesai kita masuk ke yang bagian kedua. Dan bagian kedua baru kita bisa melihat file pcap dan mengeksekusi instruksi yang sebelah sini. Silakan Bapak Ibu dicoba lagi. Bisa juga Pak, nggak apa-apa kalau misalnya sudah sih. Soalnya yang pertama itu bagiannya sudah namanya instalasi, makanya ada sudo ep3 itu nggak akan jalan. Jadi karena dia sudah terinstall di situ, sudah terpasang. Dia hanya sebagai reference saja kalau kita ingin tahu.
Uh, tes tes. Ok, Honing, hoto tu foca ela, interessante. Maybe tu agenda aí tinha pausa de der, pausa café nian 10:30. Honing agora de dar hora 10:30 no ita babere clay. E 15 minutos nyalaran ita fira mahene hori continua itinia lab. Informação ba colega Sirne be mak tama horseik, mas be la registro iha online, registro on-site, significa mas ene mak for registro, hal favor se be le karik imi registro imi nara completo, tamba hoto sehetan certificado, mas que la registro se online, mas be ita hoto sehetan certificado. Obrigada.